Okay, folks, so here, this is the first of a couple of little video lectures that I'll send to you because I have been unable to get to class. And this is about the June Nash article about Coca-Cola and water. And that article, I would say, comes in a couple of different parts. First of all, she talks about pre-conquest Mexico. And then later, she talks about the southernmost province of Mexico, which is Chiapas. So as to the first, she points out that when the Spanish arrived in what we call the Mexico City area now, it was a very watery place. And they were very happy to have conquered the area and thought it had potential. But they didn't like all that water because it didn't look like southern Spain, which is rather, dry. So they decided they would drain the entire area. And they did that by hiring Dutch engineers, which is one of the more amusing sort of global religious history stories, because Dutch people who live in the Netherlands, as you may know if you know anything about the Netherlands, they're very good at draining the area. There's canals and waterworks of various sorts because they're threatened by the North Sea. So they were the only ones in the world who knew how to build these giant kind of water-controlled systems. And the Spanish, therefore, being Catholics, had to swallow their pride and hire these Protestants, which they did. And the Dutch were very good at it. To the detriment, to the disadvantage of the people in the area ever since, because actually it turns out that the very dry substrate, the very dry soils and so forth underneath current-day Mexico City, dry, fragile, easily kind of, broken and cracked, that is not a good idea when you have earthquakes, which you do have earthquakes in that area. But at any rate, this is what the Spanish decided to do. So then also Nash talks about the Aztec view of water, and the Aztec view of water was that it was a public good, Everybody was entitled to have access to water. And you can see the religious system even being bound up in this, with various gods and goddesses being kind of tasked with, ensuring plentiful rainfall and so forth. And that notion of water being a public good, by the way, is extraordinarily common throughout the world. Generally, people have thought, well, water really doesn't belong to anyone. Okay, so that's the first half of Nash's article, and I'll come back to it in subsequent little videos here as I need to. The second half of her article is about the southernmost province of Mexico, Chiapas, and water there. So Chiapas is the highest percentage of indigenous peoples, right, Indian peoples in Mexico. It was really the last province to be completely dominated by the North, right, and the sort of new Spanish institutions and so forth. They resisted domination for a long period of time, and they also preserved any number of their older traditional rituals and ways of doing things. Of course, eventually, large landowners moved into the area, wanted to buy up land from indigenous people, convert the old subsistence system, which was, small food production, gardening, and so forth, into ranching and larger sorts of agricultural productions, with the usual consequences of poor people, sort of becoming peasants and being relegated to the sidelines, being, given the crummier land and so forth and so on. So now water there in Chiapas also initially belonged to everybody. And what Nash is doing is she's setting up this second part of the article about Chiapas to discuss some specific things, including, really interestingly, people in Chiapas had traditional rituals which used traditional forms of alcohol, not very strong alcohol, and then that alcohol was eventually replaced by distilled alcohol. All forms of alcohol require lots and lots of water, right? All right, I'm going to end there. By the way, I have lots of notes that I am posting on here, on your Blackboard. Lots of notes to be posted on Blackboard, actually from previous classes where I have taught this exact article. So I'm going to try to, keep my remarks in these videos close to what I have in the notes. Okay, so this is the first one of these little videos, and I'll get a couple more up. We'll see how many, and I'll see you later. Bye.